The final question then has 4 spelling, punctuation and grammar marks. So you've got to think about, if you know you're going to run out of time, actually, do you need to spend a little bit more time focusing on this one? And maybe start with this one and then work your way back to some of the other ones. So maybe leaving some of the 4-mark questions till the end, or maybe leaving your how useful question to the very end. So think about 20 marks available to you. 16 is for following a similar kind of structure but creating an argumentative answer than the 12-mark question. So this one has to connect, whereas obviously the 12-mark answer, you could almost treat them like they're 3 separate 4-mark answers because they don't have to connect between them to get those 12 marks. This one, you need to have an analytical explanation directed consistently at the question. So you're always linking it back to the question and your strong argument, hopefully, that you've come out with. So you've created a criteria for judgment. So you are coming up with an answer to the question. So what is it that this factor does? And you're giving accurate and relevant information. Now, one of the key things when you get your paper is to quickly highlight on your question what it is asking you to do. So here we can see the idea is deterrence. Now, I know the other factors for punishments are removing people from society, are rehabilitation, are perhaps compensation as well. The question to create an argument is main factor. Okay, so to get to that top level, I'm going to have to deal with what are the other issues and was this the main factor in causing it? And I'm looking at methods of punishment. Now, I've looked at the specific dates here, medieval and early modern. Again, if you go beyond those, you're not going to get marks for that part of the question. Likewise, if I'm not necessarily linking it back to the key words, then I'm not going to get my 4th mark for SPAG as well. If I don't know them again, it says you may use, so I can bring in something else. And I'm also going to deal with them chronologically because actually it means that I can show change over time if that's part of the question. So if I deal with the Wehrgilt and then I deal with stocks and pillory, then I can then make that nice link to early modern times. And then I'm going to deal with burning at the stake overall. That's more of a witchcraft from early modern times, but linking specifically with heresy and Mary I. So I can then show actually have attitudes changed, is deterring more important or not by the time I get to my burning at the stake paragraph. So for examiners, what we don't want to do is we don't want to do I. They have your paper in front of them. They know it is your opinion, okay? You're wasting time with all these lovely, I do this, in conclusion this, none of it matters, okay? So it's kind of wasting time. So if it's me, get straight to the point. Start with your argument. The main reason for punishments was deterrence. So you know that I think that actually I'm going to argue in every paragraph that deterrence is my main reason. Okay, this covered from medieval to early modern times where with Wehrgilt, stocks and pillory and burning at the stake. So I've told you clearly what I'm going to look at. Now I might have finished that off with a roundup as to for each of them, perhaps why are they deterring, do they link in? But maybe I don't have time, so I'm just going to crack on with it. So I'm going to structure each paragraph in the same way. I'm going to bring in some specific evidence. I'm going to explain it. So the red is my explanation. And then I'm going to link it back to the overall question as well. So the Wehrgilt suggests the main reason was not deterrence, but compensation. So I'm giving my counterpoint here and saying, well, actually, it's compensating the victims. In Anglo-Saxon times, if you killed someone, you had to compensate their families. But now I'm going to link it back to my argument that this is the main reason. However, this would deter people as... And then I've got my evidence again. If the person was killed was a prince, it would cost 1,500 shillings. A yeoman farmer cost 100 shillings and a serf cost 40 shillings. Then I'm linking it to my explanation, my as a result of. This was not affordable for the ordinary person, so should deter them. So I'm linking it back to deter. Therefore, the fine systems were mainly to deter, but also provided some compensation. So I haven't fully developed this at this point, but this is just to give you the idea that actually... half of this should really be your explanation. So think about how you're weaving it in. Each time you use a piece of evidence, go back to that compensation idea or that deterrence or whatever it is that you've said in your introduction is the main reason for punishments in this era. Each of my paragraphs is going to be structured in the same way. Now, I don't tell you all about the Wehrgilt is this at the start. I've linked it in, haven't I, saying, actually, this is the reason for it. And then I backed it up with which part of the Wehrgilt is going to prove that. Now, it just so happens that this part of the Fair Guild was actually describing it, saying that they had to pay 1,500 shillings, etc. But actually, if I'm doing something like the Bloody Code, I might not really focus on the fact that it's 225 crimes. I might focus on the fact that, and it's killing people in public, I might focus on the fact of pious perjury and how that allows people to get out of being hung and out of being removed from society. So therefore, it wasn't deterring people. So think about selecting the parts of evidence that are particularly relevant for the question. Right, conclusion should not change from your introduction. Okay, you should have argued it throughout. You should have linked it back with that green sentence kind of saying that it was the main or wasn't the main reason. Okay, so punishments were mainly to deter. So I said that in my introduction. I'm saying it again here. Then what has convinced me the most? They also compensated victims and removed people from society, but each of these was designed to deter. So even when it's compensating, it's deterring. Even when it's removing people from society, it's deterring. I might then go on to say, if I had time, that actually the only reason why governments change punishments is when they believe it's not deterring. Therefore, the main reason was deterrent. So this isn't the perfect conclusion, but it's just there to kind of show you this is what I think and this is why I think it. This is what's convinced me the most. And that has to be your kind of ending part. Okay, so it shouldn't change from your introduction. Lots of times we see people start with one thing, come back with the other. If you know you're going to do that and you're not really sure where you're going, which you shouldn't, to be honest with you, be, then write your introduction at the very last part, okay?